What's up, guys? It's Steve here with another CG Geek Blender tutorial. Today we're tackling the exciting topic of hair slash fur, you could say, in Blender. So we're going to be doing some animal type fur, the kind of shorter hair you might find on an animal, and this will be used, could be used on models and whatnot, sculpts and stuff like that. So it should be informative, should be fun, and should be good. So let's tackle this subject now. Like most of my tutorials, I'm going to start off by deleting the default cube. So X and delete that, delete the lamp too, and I'm going to replace that with a plane. So Shift A, add in a plane. We'll scale it up a little bit, so scale to about 2. Tab into edit mode, W, subdivide, and let's subdivide this a handful of times. I think 7 times will be good. Now I'm going to enable proportional editing. Boom, boom. Grab that center vertice and move my mouse wheel up using the scroll wheel to change the proportional editing size. If you don't have a scroll wheel, you can use page up and page down to do this on your keyboard. So just give it a little bit of a bevel there so you can see something like that, so it's not perfectly flat, and enable smooth shading. There we go. Alright, now I want to place my camera. So I'm going to grab my camera, kind of zoom in to the area I want here, and go Control-Alt-0. Snap my camera to that spot right there, and let's set up a few camera settings. So I want my focal length to be around 18 millimeters. So you can see I'm going to have to zoom my camera in some more. So I'm just going to do this with G and my middle mouse button, and pull it nice and close in there, and maybe pull it back down a little bit. Let's grab it along the Shift Z. This will mean it will not go up and down when I grab it, but just along the X and Y. There we go. And then zoom in a little bit more. That is good. Now I want to enable limits. Go to side view and change the focus length right here in the distance setting. And I want this to come out to be about 1.2, something like that. 1.1 would be good. And I'm going to switch from Blender Render over to Cycles Render so I can get my depth of field settings here, and change the aperture type from radius over to f-stop. Give it an f-stop of 0.1, so very shallow depth. This is going to be kind of a macro close-up shot, and those are always pretty shallow depth. So I'm going to go very shallow, and that should do it for that for now. Should do it for now. So I'm going to quick UV unwrap this square now. So tab in edit mode, A, U, unwrap. Bammo. That's all you gotta do for that. And I think we are ready to start on our hair. Let me quick set up a sun lamp as well. Just gonna grab, put my cursor to this area. Shift A, add in a sun. Rotate it like so. And rotate it like so from top view. So we got that, and let's give this a strength of 10 or something. Just a very slight orange tint, maybe. It's always good, and that should do it for that. Alright, so that is good, and maybe now just put an HDR in the background. I have a number of HDRs downloaded that will work for this, but I'll also put a link in the description. So I'm going to choose that little dot here on the color, environment texture, open up, and I'm just going to open up an HDR that I have downloaded. Like I said, I'll give the link where you can download these HDRs as well. I'm just going to do Stadium Center. There we go. So that will help with the lighting a little bit. Alright, so let's get into the hair itself. So now that we have this little scene set up, I'm going to get into the fun stuff and click on particle settings here. And new particle settings. Now we're not going to have the type be emitter, but it's going to be hair. And you see we get this really long crazy hair. And I'm going to choose advanced settings, and I'm going to turn the number way down for now, just because I'm going to be modifying the settings, and it's nice to be able to see what they look like separate from each other. So just 10 for now. We'll be changing that later. And the emitter geometry I'm going to turn down to about a 0.12. So much shorter than it was at. Let me move my camera up a little bit. Alright. Now I'm going to scroll down and let me see what we got here. I'm going to enable children. So enable children to simple. You see we get these hairs coming out around them, 10 of them, because that's what we have displayed right now. But it will render 100 of them because its render is set to 100. So I'm going to turn the render down to just 50 for now, and leave the display at 10 just so it is easier to work with. And let's change a few of these settings. So first off, the clump. The clump, I'm going to go to a positive number of about 0.5. That is because if you notice on animal fur, quite often the hairs will kind of come together in little clumps almost that kind of like are attracted to each other, especially if the hair is wet. You'll see this. So I'm going to do that so you get kind of that look, and then I'm going to turn the shape down in the negatives around negative 0.5, something like that. So we get them kind of curving in like that nicely. I'm going to turn the random length up a little bit right here. Actually, this isn't the random length, but the random location. For the length, I'm going to change the timing to absolute path timing, and then just turn the random length down up a little bit. There we go. I think 0.4 is good. And that's looking pretty nice. Maybe turn the radius up a little bit here, so they're a little bit further apart, and give it just a slight bit of roundness. Very good. Now I'm going to give it a little bit of a kink. So I want it to be a little bit curled of hair, a little curly hair, so or fur, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to choose curl. And now you can see we get that crazy result, but we're just going to turn these settings all down quite a bit. So something like that, not amplitude, turn that down quite a bit, and the frequency we will turn down quite a bit as well. So just a little bit of a curl, looking pretty good so far. And change the shape. Oh, shape is pretty good as it is, maybe just a little bit in the negatives here. And the flatness, pull that down a little bit. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. Not too bad. I'm just kind of check. Whoa. Check what these settings are set to. That's pretty good. Maybe put this back at 0.2. And that's pretty good. We got a little bit of curl to our hair. And it's looking pretty decent. I think we're ready to crank it up. I'm not going to be doing any hair dynamics. This is just a still rendered hair for now. And alright, we're ready to crank it up. So I'm going to change the number of hairs to be 10,000. We'll do 10,000, and you can see you get that crazy amount. And that might be too much for now, actually, because we can turn that up later. But maybe I'll just go 8,000. I don't want to slow down my render right now too much. So go to top view, and with the mesh selected, we're going to go object mode and change that to particle edit. So now you can see you have all your hairs sticking straight up, and this is because we're going to be combing our hairs a little bit. So this is where the fun comes in, because this is really a fun part of the tutorial. You can actually use the comb tool here, change the size with F, and the strength with Shift F. And I want the strength to be down quite a bit, so I'm going to go to about a 0.3. And you basically can comb your hairs by just clicking and holding and dragging. So we're going to basically kind of comb our hair in whatever shape or direction we want. Now I kind of want mine coming across the camera this ways. So I'm just kind of clicking and dragging my cursor across my scene to get all the hair going that direction. And that looks pretty close to what I want. Now I'm going to come in and add just a little bit of variation to the combing. So maybe some kind of flicking it up a little bit here. So you can kind of like do that, give it little tufts of hair. And you can really go crazy and let your imagination flow and do whatever you want here. But this is just something I found looked kind of good and realistic. Hair kind of poking up here and there. Not always so perfect. Looks like I'm going to have to change my focal length a little bit. But now if I switch to object mode, you can see we have, let me quick add in a new material here so it turns white. There we go. You can see our hair. And it's all coming the right direction and it's looking pretty cool. So that is good. I'm going to change my focal length a little bit, like I said. Grab this, make the focal length more like 20, and then the limit distance here, let's crank that up a little bit. So we'll go 0.2. I think that looks pretty good, maybe 0.24. Okay, that's getting a little bit nitpicky now, but that is fine. And let's work on rendering this. So we're using cycles, and I'm going to split my window here to bring up my node editor. There we go, and node editor. Hit N to close my properties tab there. And let me select my hair here, hair mesh. And let me name this material. Well, actually, let's start off by naming it base, because this is going to be not the hair, but the base of the hair. Then I'm going to add a new material here, new, and name this one hair. Very good name. And for the base material, I'm basically going to use the diffuse texture here. Shift A, add in a image texture. There we go. Connect the color to the color of the diffuse. And I'm just going to open up a bark texture. So I'm using a bark texture because it has some variation to it. I'm using this one here. I'll put a link in the description, like I always do. But bark texture, it has a lot of variation and will work well for our scene. So I'm going to use the bark texture, and I'm going to throw in a color, RGB curves, and I'm also going to, well, actually I think that's all I need for now. And I'm going to make it a little bit reddish. So clicking red and giving it a little bit of a reddish look, and making it a little bit darker maybe. Very good. And let's save my project at this point. So just quick save it as tutorial. And let me stick in my tutorial file. Very good. Save as Blender project. Alright. Always good to save. Alright, so let's see if our base material is rendering properly. I'm going to go to my modifiers and quick turn off the view of my hair so I can just see the base, and switch to rendered view. And you can see we get that. And that's pretty good. That's actually what we want, and I think everything is looking good with that. So, happy with that. Turn my hair back on, and let's make our hair material. So, for the hair material, switch to my hair material here. We will not be using a diffuse material, so X and delete that. What are we going to use? We're going to use shader, hair shader. Now, this is a relatively new node in Blender, and a very, very good node. Very easy to create nice looking hair with it, and I love it. So you can see you have two options here, reflection and transmission in the hair settings. And I'm going to be actually using both of these because they're both good in their own way for giving it a realistic look. I think transmission is a little bit more like a translucent material, a little brighter, and works as kind of a translucent material. So I'm going to be duplicating this, hitting Shift D and duplicating, and making one of them transmission and one of them reflection. Now I want to mix these two hair shaders together, and so I'm going to do that with a Shift A mix shader. Now plug that into the surface and plug both these into here. Now I want to mix these not with a factor, but I'm going to Shift A, add in input hair info. I'm going to do this with the intercept setting in the hair info. Now this is a technique that I think they used, Blender Diplome used on their material, and it seems like it's basically the basic material you want to use for a base hair material in Blender cycles. So the intercept option will basically track along the length of the strand, and the parts towards the base will have more reflection, and the parts towards the tip will have more transmission, and this will give it more of a realistic look because you'll get a little bit more translucent kind of material at the tip and less at the base. So I'm going to turn the roughness on both these up to about a 1.5, maybe even a 0.2. Let me try 0.2. And I'm going to add in a color to the hair. So Shift A, add in an image texture, and then just choose the same one we opened up for the base material, and pull it over here. Now I'm going to Shift A, add in a color curves, RGB curves, connect the color here to the RGB curves, and then this RGB curves to both the hair colors. Very good. Now I also want to add in, let me pull that back here. I also want to add in a brightness contrast node. So color, bright contrast, stick that in there as well. So I'm going to add a little bit of contrast to this texture, and I'm not going to touch the brightness right now. And now I'm going to do my RGB curves and give it a little bit of a reddish tint, because this is what I want for this kind of color hair. You can do whatever color you desire. And let's set up some hair settings real quick in the particle settings here. You can see after you go to particle edit, you can no longer change all these settings unless you free the edit, and you basically lose your comb job. So you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you're pretty happy with these settings before you comb them. But I'm going to come down here to my cycles hair rendering option, and I'm going to leave these as they are. That is fine. But I'm going to change the thickness and the tip. So thickness, I'm going to start with just a 0.1, and the tip, I'm going to go 0.01. Alright, that should be good. I'm going to save my scene, and I'm going to go to rendered view, and we'll see what this is looking like. Alright, you can see it's rendered. It might take a little while. I'm just rendering it now. Let's see what we're getting. Alright, so started rendering this, and I saw we had a few errors that we can quickly correct. First off, I have the transmission and the reflection flipped the wrong way. The transmission should be in the top slot, so flip that around there. And secondly, the hair is a little bit bland colored, so I'm going to give it a little bit more contrast here, and I'm going to add in another node, Shift A, add in a hue saturation node, and let's give it a little bit of saturation, and let's brighten that up a little bit too, so it will be a little brighter. That should right there help a lot. Now I think I have a few hairs kind of sticking up a little random here as well, so I'm going to jump over to my hair settings again and change some of these settings a little bit. Let me take the flatness down a little bit, and let's take the frequency up a little bit maybe. You can see it all changing as a whole. Turn that up a little bit more, it's looking kind of good. And turn the shape down a little bit. Well, not around 0, close to 0. There we go. Alright, I think I'm ready to try it again. I also think that the thickness of the hair is a little bit too much at the root of the hair. So I think I'm going to change the root to be just a little bit smaller, maybe a 0.08. And that should be good. It should do it. I think that will look a bit better. So before doing another render now, I'm going to add in some variation to the hair. Some brighter strands and some darker strands, because no hair is without some variation. So to do this, I'm going to start off by going to my materials and making 2 more. And this first one will be hair, except we're going to click this little 2 box here to make it its own version of the hair. So we're not changing them both at the same time. And this one will be hair dot light, or let me just say white. That might be better, simpler. And this one will be boom hair. Click the checkbox, and this one will be hair black. So we're gonna have some darker strands and some brighter strands. The black, I'm going to adjust by taking the color ramp curves and going to the color here and bringing the curve way down into the black. And then the white, I'm going to take the color option here and take it up into the white. So you can see in a little viewport display that they change in color there. I can also make the white one a little bit brighter here in the brightness and contrast. That looks good. Now I'm going to go to particle settings, a new particle system. I'm going to take the same settings from the top one, so change this from particle settings 1 to particle settings. But again, click that little checkbox so I'm not changing both of them. And this one is going to be much less. I'm going to turn this one down to about 500 strands for now. You see we get that. Very good. I'm also going to change the render material on this one here from base over to hair white. Very good. Now do this one more time. New material, choose particle settings, click the checkbox so you're not changing both of them. Turn it way down to about 500. And give this one a different seed as well here. That's important, because we don't want them to be in the exact same spot as the last one. And we can choose render hair black. Very good. If you wanted to kind of change the viewport display of these, you could go hair black, change the viewport to be a much darker, blacker color, and the white. But it doesn't seem to change the color of the hair anyways, so it's not really that important. Alright, so now we gotta comb these new strands, but we also need to turn the children way down on them. So I just want about 3 per strand. It looks like the color actually does come through, so that's cool. So I'm gonna render just 3 and display just 3 on the black for the children, and same with particle settings 2. Let's take this down to 3 and 3. Alright, so now we need to do a little bit of a comb job on these as well. So let me give you some more room here and switch from object mode to particle edit. Now if I hit T to bring up my toolbar, you can see we have 3 particle settings here, and that is because I added 2 more, obviously. And let me open this up a little bit here, and you can see I'm on particle settings 2. So let's comb these over a little bit, give them a little bit of a comb job, make them look nice and natural. So just doing some quick combing. It doesn't have to be perfect. These don't have to look the exact same as the other ones either. If they kind of stick up in a little bit here and there, it might look good. So just do a little bit of that and kind of go to the side view here, do a little bit more of that, maybe turn the strength up a little bit. Doesn't seem to be grabbing them all too well. There we go. Kind of fluff them up a little bit, and there we go. Now go to the other settings here and comb these over as well, however you desire. Turn the strength down a little bit now. Kind of fluff them up and comb them over. So this is where you can really be creative, like I said, and have fun with whatever kind of hair you want. Give it little frizzles, little puffs. It's kind of fun just kind of playing around with it. It's really cool. It's almost like sculpting with hair. So a lot of fun, and we'll just do that. Very good. And object mode. Okay, so now I think I'm ready for another render. So I'm not going to render quite as high as I was last time attempting to. That was going to take a little while. So just give that 100 samples. And performance, let me turn the tile size up a little bit. 256, 256 would be good. And this is only because I'm using GPU. If you're rendering with your CPU, then you want to turn the tile size down a little bit. Alright, so save it and we'll render this. Alright, so I paused my recording again because I'm still not very happy with the colors I'm getting here. So it looks like I could do a little bit more combing, and I'm also not real happy with the colors I'm getting. So let's fix that. Go into my hair settings here, materials. I'm going to give it a little bit more contrast. So let's go to about a 0.2. And let's give it a little bit more saturation. And let me kind of open up the preview here so we can kind of see what this is looking like on the strands. Alright, that looks like it should be pretty dark and good. That should help a little bit. Maybe take the base color, and yeah, I already made it a little bit darker there, so that should be helping there. And maybe make the bright strands a little bit brighter and the dark strands a little bit darker. Alright, that looks very dark. It should be dark. Now change the particle settings a little bit as well before I comb them up. I want to make the strand root a little bit thicker. I'm taking my word back on that. Make the tip a little bit bigger too. Same, and then you have to change these same settings on some of your other settings here. So let me go 0.2 in the tip and 0.1 in the root. Good. Same with our main material here. Alright, so give it a little bit more tip. Okay, and 0.1 on the root would be good. Now I also want to change the comb, like I said, but I also want to change the focal length on the camera a little bit. It's a little too shallow depth, just a little bit too over the top, so go 0.2 instead of that. And let's particle object mode. Let's select our hair here and go particle edit. And my main mesh here, I'm going to kind of comb across these again, just giving it a little bit smoother of a look, kind of giving him a little bit of some character though. Very good. And then maybe right in the center here, give it a little bit of a little poof. Another thing you can do, which will slow down your viewport a little bit, but to give a little bit smoother looking hair, I cranked up the, let me scroll up here, the segments here a little bit. I can't do this without combing my hair again, but this will give you a little bit smoother looking hair. And you know what? Maybe I'll quick do that. Free the edit. I'll lose my particle changes, but crank the segments up a little bit on all of these real quick. Choose that one. Free edit. Hello. Yes. Good. Do that. And a few more segments. Give it a little bit of a smoother look. You too. Yes, I want you to do that. And a few more segments. So now you got to quick go through and do your combing again if you chose to do that. But it should look smoother. It'll just be a little bit choppier in your viewport because it has more segments, obviously. But not a big deal. And flick that up. Next one. I'm just doing this kind of quick and dirty now because I've already done this once. But there we go. Flick them all over to the side a little bit. Very good. And our final one here. So comb these all over nice and good, giving it a little bit of character, a little bit of coolness. But there we go. Something like that. Yeah, you don't want to go crazy because it looks a little bit weird if it's too crazy. But something like that isn't bad. Maybe just kind of get them all in an even angle there too. Yeah. And then you want to kind of focus on the focal length here, where you're going to actually do your little bit of poofs and such, because that's what's going to be in focus. So keep that in mind. There we go. And that should be pretty decent. So object mode, you can see what we got here. Some of these white hairs look a little bit crazy, so let's kind of comb those in a little bit there. Alright, not too bad. Some of these as well. Okay, so object mode, we'll go into viewport and save. Alright, I'm expecting great things now, so I think I'll let this render all the way out, even if it's not perfect, because I'm ready for it. So F12, render, and we'll see what we get. Alright, so I lied. I canceled the render. Why? Because I demand perfection. So I got a few issues here. Not real happy with the combing here. And my camera is too low, I'm realizing. And that is why I'm getting this too shallow depth of field. Not because it's too shallow, but because my camera is not high enough. I want to be looking down at the hair a little more and not quite so much at the angle I'm at. So I'm going to rotate it downward a little more and grab it upward a little more. There we go. If we go to camera view, that is more what I'm looking for. Excellent. Now a little bit of combing is in order, I think, to make it look a little better. Now you gotta be careful with the combing, because I found myself just spending way too much time just going back and, oh, if that hair was moved a little bit, it'd be better. Oh, just move that a little bit. You know, it can really kill your time, the time it takes to do things, if you keep coming back and changing it. So you gotta pick something you like and just go with it and not be quite the perfectionist with this. But I'm gonna go with that. I hope. We'll see. And let me split my window here, and I'm not getting the saturated look that I want, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to give it the saturated look that I'm going for, and because I want it. So let me first go to my hair options here. Now that looks a little dark, so that might be part of the issue. So I'm going to turn my brightness up a notch here, give it a little bit of a brighter look. Red. Let's give it some more red. There we go. Make sure that's looking nice and red. That is more like it. And turn the roughness just down a little bit. 1.5, it might be a little high. This is kind of like glossiness you'll get on the hair. So there we go. I think we are ready to render now, and I hope it's good. So we'll render and we will see. Okay, so there we go, and that is more what I was looking for. You can see we got some nice kind of curling coming to the hair in here, and it looks nice and fibery and pretty realistic. It's a little bit crazy, like it could be combed a little bit more, but I'm not going to do that because I've combed it a lot, and you gotta tell yourself to stop at one point, you know? The saturation is still a little bit low, so you could crank that up a little bit too. I did a little bit of compositing on my scene, but I'm not going to bother doing that for this tutorial. All I'm going to do is jump to my color management here and crank the exposure up a little bit to like a 0.2, and then take the gamma down a little bit to like a 0.8. And that might be a little bit too much. Maybe just a 0.5 or 0.1, and gamma to 0.9. But there you go. Let me go a little bit more exposure there. Brighten it up a little bit. There you go. So that is creating realistic hair in Blender. Now I said I wasn't going to do any compositing, but screw that. I'm going to throw in a little bit of saturation to this bad boy. So let me quick Control Shift click there to add in a viewer node. Shift A, add in a color hue saturation value. Let me see what that looks like. Enable backdrop. And give it just a little saturation. Ooh, there we go. There we go. Maybe change the hue just a tad to the red. I don't know. That's too much of a tad. There we go. Something like that. And that will do it, guys. I only rendered this at 50 samples, so if you want a cleaner image, I'd recommend going almost all night. That's what I did with my render. I made it nice and high quality, and then I choose Performance, Progressive, Refine. And this is basically, it means it will render the whole thing as one sample, basically, no tiles. But it will just keep going if you put your samples at something really high. And then when you come up, wake up in the morning and you look at your render and you're happy with it, you can just hit escape and it will stop it at whatever sample rate it made it to throughout the night. And it will be nice and high quality. So there's a little tip for you guys, but this is going to do it. That is the tutorial. You see some brighter strands in here, some darker strands in here. And everything's looking pretty good. Hope you guys might have learned something in this realistic fur/hair tutorial. Had some fun and yeah, learned some valuable information along the way. So that'll do it for me, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. So bye-bye.